fact that no one gets out of this alive. We've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, God willing. It's understanding, like, when I was diagnosed with cancer, the fear was unbelievable. Like, I was just completely just enveloped in just fear. And I don't know how or when it happened, but it just sort of flipped. It went from being terrified, like, to the point where I couldn't breathe, to it being like, no. Like, I've got work to do.
Welcome back to the Max Out Show, where today I'm honored to talk to one of the greatest athletes of all time, Olympic champion and four-time world champion in figure skating, Scott Hamilton. From 1981 to 84, Scott dominated his sport and won every single competition, which later led, amongst other things, to his induction in the Olympic Hall of Fame and an Emmy Award nomination. Scott also survived multiple rounds of cancer and now spends his time helping others get through life's toughest challenges. So Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
I'm super excited to have you. And so I want to first take you back to the moment you were 16, one of the most pivotal moments, I'm assuming, of your life, when your mom sort of cheerfully announced that she had cancer. So can you take us back to that moment for a second? And
yeah, it was really odd. My mom was really super, always, very friendly, always very interactive, always the first to laugh at everything. And she was also very well instructed, very well schooled in marriage and family relations. She was an associate professor at Bowling Green State University. So she kind of understood the whole family dynamic thing. So when she got the news that she had cancer, I'm sure she was devastated. But the way she told us really gave us permission to kind of relax and just sort of not be fearful. And she just sort of came home and she goes, family meeting. And I was like, what's a family meeting? We've never really done that before. And so we sat her on the table and she said, I've just been diagnosed with a disease called cancer. And we were like, I thought cancer was really bad. And she goes, so I'm going to need a little, I'm going to have some medicine. I may not feel good, and I'm going to have some surgery, and I'm just going to need some help around the house. And so she started doling out all the duties for how we're going to be more part of the family day-to-day dynamic. And I was just really taken aback by her strength and her courage and everything. And the more I look back on that time, I realized how much it's formed me. How much I've wanted to become that person. And so she was an extraordinary lady. I miss her every day. And, she fought it for 2 years and lost her battle, and it was devastating. And so in her passing, I just had to wake up and try to be the person she always wanted me to be.
Yeah, so talk to us about that moment of decision where you decided to honor her and start living every day for her at your best, at your highest potential.
Yeah, she was kind of the most important person in my life. She was extraordinary in so many ways. And I was in her room until about 3:30 in the morning, the night before she passed. And, she was unconscious. She didn't really want to have any pain medication until the end. And so we were in her room, and my brother and I were there till about 3:30. And then we went home, and I was asleep on the couch in the family room because we had a lot of people visiting us. We had a very small house. And my brother-in-law at the time came in, and he just sort of sat down next to me, woke me up. And I go, what's going on? He goes, your mother is gone. And I the only thing I could think to say was, I know. I don't really know why I said that, but I don't know. So I sort of got up and I decided to walk around my backyard. We lived out in the country. And so I just walked, and I was like, how do I do this? How do I live without her? I was so, there was so much grief that I had to figure out what to do with it. And in that, I thought, I was never really the person that she hoped I could be while she was alive. So why don't I carry her with me and try to become the person that she always dreamed I could be. She would I would finally pass a figures test, and she would drag me around the neighborhood to all the neighbors saying, well, we just passed our test with flying. And I'd be like quietly embarrassed, but at the same time, I was very, I knew she was proud of me. But I never really, I didn't go on. I love skating, but I wasn't really one of the hardest workers. And I love the opportunities that skating gave me, but I didn't ever really feel like I went all in until I lost her. And so I used that to keep me accountable. Like if I was going to be late for practice, it's like, no, honor her, show up on time. If I didn't really feel like doing a long program run through, because it's kind of hard, I go, honor her. No, I do a long program through. So all of that, just being accountable to her and being accountable to her memory and being, just trying to, be that person that I wasn't when she was alive, really changed everything in my life. And, I used her love to power me through the most daunting competition series of my life, so she was the fuel for sure.
Wow. So is that something you still use to this day?
Yeah. It's like, I do a lot of work in cancer, and it's really because she had cancer. 20 years later, I had cancer, but I realized that she taught me how to go through it. She would always kind of try to make chemotherapy smaller than it was, right? So she would say things like, oh, I love this chemo. This chemo is so great. I finally found a way to lose all this weight. Oh, I love chemotherapy. It's just so awesome. I've wanted to quit smoking all these years. Now I have no desire. Oh, I love this. This chemo is amazing. It's so awesome. My hair has always been such a problem. These wigs are so much easier and they're so beautiful. And so she was like the person that turned everything to the positive. And I love that about her. And it was one of those things that's what I want to do. So when I had my cancer, no one was allowed in my hospital room unless they made me laugh. Wow. And so I tried to turn it into more of a joyful environment than a, kind of a medical kind of fight for your life environment, so I learned a lot from her. And now, even now with all my brain tumors and stuff, like each time I tell my kids, I try to be like my mom and say, is your brain tumor back, Dad? And I go, yes, it is. It's going to be great, And so, she taught me a lot, in the few years that I had her.
Wow, that is such a beautiful story. And it really speaks to you. Call yourself this eternal optimist, right?
Yeah.
And really,
so the optimism thing, it's like, it's so much better than the other, And I think of, it's like, oh, I'm going to dread everything. No, I'm going to try to find a way. I learned early that, if I just decide I'm going to be okay today, then I usually am. It starts with that decision. Like, I'm okay today, so let's go. And then I realized, later when I got into faith, that light chases out darkness. Like, darkness has no power over light, right? It's like darkness can never defeat light, right? Light always defeats darkness. So whenever I get kind of like down, I just try to just fill myself with light and just try to figure out how am I, what would be something what makes me happy. And just sort of go to that place instead of allowing whatever my conditions are at the time to kind of bring me under and overwhelm me. So it's been a really interesting ride, with all these different health challenges. Each one has had their own identity, and each one has really strengthened me and brought me more in touch with who I am, and really allowed me to understand how faith comes into it and who I am. In the Lord's eyes. So, it's been something I love to share.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to dive later also into this hobby, as you call it, of collecting life-threatening illnesses. Because the way that you go through these is so fascinating to me, because even for people that aren't, they're listening to this and they aren't, struggling with cancer or whatever, but they have their own challenges, right? And I think it is the same mindset that if you learn that optimism, if you learn to smile, even in the midst of the suffering, that is the most beautiful thing, the most beautiful skill you can learn in life. But before that, just to take you back to 1980, the Olympics, the first Olympics where you took fifth. in the Olympics.
Mhm.
What was sort of the driving force, in the years after that that allowed you to really dominate the sport for 4 years?
Yeah, it was really wild. When my mom died, I woke up, and so I got to work, and I sort of was naturally attracted to doing this one jump that nobody was really doing at that time. It was called the triple Lutz. It's a nothing jump now. They're all doing quads now, but back then nobody really had a triple Lutz, and so I kept working on it. And I had to my mom actually had to fly out to Denver where I was training because I had to get my hip operated on because I kept falling on it. So she came and stayed with me for a few days while I got my hip operated on, and that was a great memory. And then it hurt too bad to fall on it, so I started landing it. It hurt. So pain is a powerful teacher, right? So I started landing it, and so I got ahead of my competitors a little bit, right? So when I went into the 1980 season, I was stronger in the figures than I was before because I always struggle with those. And I was really consistent in the short program, and I had that triple Lutz, which was kind of like my ace of the hole. And so I was able to do it in the short program and the long program. And so I was able to make the Olympic team. And then after that Olympics, I was fifth, right? So the number one guy, Robin Cousins, turned professional. Then Jan Hoffman, the silver medalist, went to medical school. And then Charlie Tickner, the bronze medalist, turned professional. So all I had to do is wake up one morning in like the spring of 1980, and I'm ranked second in the world. It's kind of like, I joke that it's a really good, cup of coffee. That was amazing.
I bet.
Yeah. And so I'm ranked second in the world. It's like, I'm that close. What do I got to do in order to win and win it all? And I realized it was just get weak. Get strong where I'm weak, So I really wasn't that strong in the compulsory figures, and the guy that I had to beat was amazing at them. So I just had to fall in love with that. And so I just put my head down, I got to work, and I just tried to get strong where I was weak. And even to this day, like my kids will be, in sports, and I go, what's your greatest strength? And they roll their eyes and they go, lack of weakness. I go, yeah, figure out where you're weak and get strong. And pretty soon, if you kind of do that, like just in life in general, if you're like, where are my weaknesses and where do I really struggle? And you just wear out, just getting stronger at all that stuff. Pretty soon you kind of feel a lot better about yourself. Like I'm always the shortest guy in my class. I was always the little one, the weak one, all that stuff. So I've never been really great with competition. Now it's like I'm really getting better at like being in a contentious situation and not being crushed by it. It's, I'm very calm in the storm now. So before I'd run for cover, now it's kind of like, I get this for what it is. I'm okay. It's all right. This too shall pass. And, so in all of that, just try to figure out how to be strong enough to stand up to that moment. I really got stronger where I was weak. And then starting in the October, I guess it was around this time of year, in 1980, from that competition, Skate Canada on, I never lost a competition again. So it was a really big run. I never anticipated it. It was never my plan to go undefeated for 4 years. Even to now, it's like, how did that happen? I got lucky a few times, but it was just being ready when the bell rang. It's time to throw it down and get to work.
Yeah, the consistency is just absolutely mind-blowing. And what fascinated me and watching you is I don't know anything about figure skating, but just watching some of those videos, it was so apparent you just had fun. Like it just looked like you were having the greatest time, like entertaining crowds, smiling, jumping. Like was that one of the secrets maybe to like allowing you to have that kind of consistency, just having fun when you were doing it?
Well, I loved it, but I also learned from, like my big motivator, my big kind of muse inspiration was music. I love music. And so, back in the day, when I look back on that time, there were 3 artists that were really very impactful and very like inspiring to me. And one of them was Neil Diamond, because, he was just crushing it. And he was, every time he's on stage, he just shows joy. Like, it's always just, you get so wrapped up in the joy of his music and the way that he looks on stage, and the way, and I go, I love that. I want to be like that on the ice. And then the other one was Bruce Springsteen, who is very blue collar and just, worked really hard, built an audience, showed up every night, really just sort of got under, into the crowd's seats and got them out of the, just insane amount of just performance and all that. And I was like, I want to be like that. And then the third one was Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. And he just, when Zeppelin broke up, I thought, oh man, I'm going to miss that voice. And he went on this journey of just being really brave in his choices and really trying to do things that really were going to make his music more interesting and more eclectic and broad. And I want to do that too. So I kind of did that throughout. And I realized that the more I show joy on the ice, the more people enjoy the performance. And then as a professional, I realized the more I show joy on the ice, people come to those shows to give themselves a couple of hours off, right? They just want to step into a different environment and enjoy, all that. And so if you can create something really exciting and something unique and just put 120% effort into it while you're having the best time of your life, people like that, and it helps really truly build that relationship over time. And I was able to do that, which, to this day, I look back and I go, wow, that was really crazy. I toured for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I thought if I could go 2 to 4, I was fooling a lot of people, but, it just worked out where I was able to kind of stick around for a long time and reinvent myself a little bit each year, like Robert Plant would, and work hard and build that audience like Springsteen would, and show the joy like Neil Diamond would.
Yeah, that's just absolutely incredible. This transformation, and from being the best in the world at this figure skating thing, and then also like quitting basically as the best in the world, to then start touring with the like all the other great guys, and then running these shows and inspiring people and giving them a good time. So what were some of the learnings that you had over this 20-year career, really, as an entertainer, I would almost call it, or a performer, where you just essentially shamed those emotions?
Well, when I was competing, it was purely amateur, right? So in 1984, when I won the Olympics and then my 4th world championship, I was flat broke. Like I didn't have anything, right? And I was living in my best friend's parents' basement. It was close to the rink, and I was able to stay there and train. And they looked after me, and it was awesome. I loved them. And it was, one of those things where I got to get a job. It's like, okay, wow, I had this huge run. What am I going to do next year? Well, if I kind of keep doing it, it's like, okay, what's another title? Like the 4 is all I really ever, like if I make 4, that's the best in stick button. That's pretty cool. So I did that, or no, since Hayes Jenkins. I did that. And then I go, okay, that's like, wow, that was really amazing. So I got a job with the Ice Capades, and I decided that I really wanted to keep my skating up. So it's a 33-week tour, and I negotiated it just to help them out that I really only do 20 weeks. Let's just do a 20-week deal. And then I can keep my skating up, and I can do all these like commentary and these other things that I really like to do. And I can rest so that when the showtime comes, I'm totally 100% ready to go. And that way I can still build that audience where I'm not going to get burnt out over 33 weeks. And they loved that idea. They thought that was great. And so I would, again, 20-week commitment each year. I would end up doing 23 or 24 weeks because, skaters would get hurt, and they'd ask me to go in those cities and take over kind of the starring roles there. But after I had a 3-year contract. It was 2 years guaranteed, and the third was an option, and I never missed a show, and I never missed a press call. And I even did all those extra shows for skaters that got hurt. And so I'm thinking, oh man, I was the model employee. This is going to be the greatest thing. I'm so not only getting that 3rd-year option, but they're going to extend it way past. And the whole time I was doing the show, I was paying attention to like production. And I was paying attention to, lighting and setup and how the audience was brought in. And I paid attention to kind of what music worked and what didn't, and how, the audience response. And I was just really trying to take it all in. And what was really wild was that after the 2 years, the president of the Ice Capades came, who I really had a great relationship with. And he goes, well, you said you were going to do it, and you did it. You never missed a show, and you never missed a press obligation. You're a model employee. And he said, we're going through a sale. The show is being sold to a new owner. And it's like, I look forward to meeting him. And he goes, well, he doesn't really want to meet you. And I go, what?
Yeah.
What? And he goes, he only wants women. He doesn't want any male skaters. He only wants female skaters. So, good luck.
Wow.
That was the end of it, right? So, I met with my manager. I was a big tennis fan, so I went down to Florida to watch the Lipton tournament, and he was in charge of the tennis division for IMG. So I kind of had backstage pass to all the tennis stuff, which was really cool. And so we're sitting there, and he goes, "So I've been thinking a lot about this," and I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Do you want to help us build a tour?" And I looked at him. I go, "Let me check my schedule." I got nothing, right? And so he had an idea. IMG wanted to start a little show called Stars on Ice, and I said, "Yeah, I think I know enough. I think I learned enough. I think I've got enough gas in the tank where I can really help you build this thing and grow it." And so I had an opportunity. That was it, an opportunity to build Stars on Ice. And what's crazy is I toured with them full time for 15 years. And then I went back and I guested a little bit after I left the tour as a full touring member. I guested at, some cities. So it took me to my 20th year. And I look back on that now and I think, what an incredible thing that show still exists to this day.
Wow. Yeah.
Even after all these years, I'm no longer performed in it. And I was like, wow, that was such an incredible thing, that to be rejected, basically let go by one company, and that would normally devastate, and I was devastated, but I kind of felt there's something else out there. I just got to find it. And then to be given that opportunity was extraordinary. And we were able to grow that tour into something spectacular. And when I do my speeches, it's really funny. I go, okay, here's the definition of passive aggression, right? Has anyone seen Capades lately? Anyone seen Ice Capades lately? That show that toured for 50 plus. Oh, that's right. They went out of business. They must not have had enough men to sell tickets for them. So that was kind of it. But, it was just great that I was fortunate enough to earn that opportunity, through just showing up every day and working really hard. I was able to kind of allow another company to see that I might be a horse they could bet on,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful and absolutely amazing story, and I think it speaks to this idea that if you just buckle down and you do the things that you're supposed to do, and you do all the right stuff, and you are that model employee, that at some point someone's going to start to notice, right? So even if you lose that one job, you can create opportunities by having the right mindset, by going into it with this optimistic attitude, always looking to add value, always, also like going above and beyond what you said, like before, right? Like you were supposed to just skate, but you started looking at the camera and the lighting and the music and all of the different aspects of it, like essentially preparing yourself in advance.
Well, and you think of the opposite, right? You think about showing up late. You think about phoning it in. You think about just, being there for the check. And, and then all of a sudden, if it doesn't work out, what do you have now, right? So for me, it was like, I'm going to keep pushing. And, the fact that I was able to keep my skating up and grow as a performer, grow as an entertainer. And then, it's like, it's almost that sort of being an appreciating asset instead of a depreciating asset. It's like, I want to be more valuable next year because more people want to see me skate. The other thing that was really fun that I did that was sort of came out of being aware of my surroundings. Every time I go to skate a show, I'd always go back and I'd listen to the kind of murmur of the audience to kind of, if it was louder, that meant, well, there was more people in the building, but also that means that there was a sense of anticipation. And I'd always like, okay, that they're already kind of leaning in, so we can really just seal this thing. But every time I'd look through the curtain, you know, and see, you know, what was out there, there'd always be some man sitting next to his wife, and he was, you know, he's checking his watch and he's like rolling his eyes. He's like, he didn't want to be there. And I thought, if I can get that guy out of his chair, right? Just,
Wow,
you know,
yeah.
if I can get a standing ovation out of that guy, that's the audience that's being sort of neglected, right? The women are, you know, the women that come to the show, you know, they love figure skating. It appeals to them on so many levels, but not so much the men. If I can make men love figure skating, I can skate forever. I can just skate for as long as I want. And it kind of worked out that way, where I'll be at the Nashville airport, you know, traveling to some place, and some guy will come up to me and he goes, "Are you the skater?" And I'll say, "Yes, sir." And he'll go, "Oh, I don't watch skating. Because I'm like a football, basketball guy. You know, I'm a team sport guy. But my wife loves the figure skating. Can I go get her and introduce you to her?" And I go, "Absolutely." So a guy will come back a minute or two later with his wife, and he'll say, "Honey, look who's here," and she'll look at me like, I have no idea who that is. And that's like, I win.
Yeah,
like, I won him over. I win. You know, so it's that, you know, it's trying to be appealing to, you know, grow, like, you know, get outside your bubble and try to build something, more interest, more awareness, more, you know, again, it's this greater opportunity. And it's also, it's classic, you know, build your audience 101 is to really reach out to people that won't necessarily be there or wouldn't be necessarily interested, and try to appeal to them and bring them in.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So do you use the same thing in your public speaking now, like the same approach, or maybe even targeting people that may not usually be in your audience and trying to win them over and get that standing ovation?
Well, you know, you'd like to, you know, it just comes down to the audience, you know, it comes down to being aware of who you're talking to and really being accessible to their needs, you know, and a lot of times it's, you know, it comes in either it's a corporate thing where you're there to kind of inspire and motivate, or, you know, just sort of entertain their employees, or it can be a fundraiser where you're there to really just relate to the audience as far as why they're there to support this particular organization. There's standalone kind of like these town halls where you show up to give a lecture series, and you know, it's so, you know, it's either, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine who actually did my podcast for the Live Your Days thing. His name is Kevin Neal, and he's a comedian. I reached out to him years ago. I was in Las Vegas, and just sort of feeling kind of like, you know, I just was feeling low that day, and he always cheers me up. So I go, "Kevin, I'm struggling here a little bit. Maybe you can help me." And he goes, "Yeah, anything." And I go, you know, I felt like, you know, I'm looking at sort of my identity, and it's like I was a skater that sort of became like a competitive skater, and then I became like a champion skater, and then I became a professional skater, and then an entertainer, and then kind of felt like I was like a schmoozer after a while. And now I'm doing this. I go, who am I now? And he goes, "Oh, that's easy." And I go, "Please tell me." And he goes, "You're an imposter." Like, okay, I can live with that. Oh, that's so funny. You know, so, you know, it's just, you always want to step into and be responsible to expectation. And, you know, and if you can do that and then take it maybe a little further, and, you know, it's like, I was lucky enough, I was at a V Foundation for Cancer, you know, they were funding research, and I couldn't get into the scientific symposium because it was like, there was standing room only, and I'm too short to see over people. So I decided to go in and grab a cup of coffee, and there was this man sitting there, and he goes, "You want to join me?" And I go, "Absolutely." And so we're talking, and I realized all at once, I knew his name, and I kind of knew a little bit about him. He was the founder of the Washington Speakers Bureau. Wow. And that's what I do kind of for a living, is speaking. And so I'm now sitting across the man. Yeah. And I was like, okay, you know, tell me what I need to know. Just give me a master class. And he told me, like, and it's all simple things. It's really being, connecting to your clients, right? It's really being interactive with them to, give them, because a lot of times there's a lot of stress that goes into putting on these meetings and putting on these events. And it's really being considerate of their stress and trying to make sure that you're not a source of any of their stress, and to, show gratitude throughout. And there was other things, but those are the main ones where I was like, that's so simple, but it's also kind of like life, like if you were to go and be that way at work, to be that way at school, to be that way in your family, to always be accessible, be accountable, be that person that's not going to be a source of stress, but a problem solver for that person, and show gratitude in the moment, man, the world would change overnight. I mean, it would change instantaneously. And so like I used everything he told me to use. We become really good friends. And after each speech, I write a handwritten thank you note for the opportunity. And those are the old school little things that really make, they really allow people to understand my gratitude for the opportunity. Instead of it just being, well, I'm sure they know, and I'm just going to go on with my life. It's like, no, I'm going to take this time, articulate my feelings, and share it with them. And, it's kind of that interaction that if we could all just do that, wow. Wow. It just it just adds value to that whole interaction, pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely love that. Now I want to take you back to the end of the Stars on Ice period when you started this hobby, as I mentioned before, quote unquote, and you call it, of collecting disease illnesses, life-threatening illnesses. So for people that maybe going through this, maybe they know what are some of the lessons that you've learned from just facing these challenges over and over and over again, on staying with that positive and optimistic attitude? What are some of the things they've learned?
It's kind of the whole foundation of the Live Your Days thing. It's like, our bodies are incredibly susceptible and fragile and vulnerable to a lot of things, right? We're not bulletproof, right? So understanding that, and then understanding that also our bodies are amazingly resilient, and they're incredibly powerful, right? They can endure, they can, last, but ultimately they're temporary, right? So looking at the fact that no one gets out of this alive, we've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, God willing. It's understanding, like, when I was diagnosed with cancer, the fear was unbelievable. Like, I was just completely just enveloped in just fear. And I don't know how or when it happened, but it just sort of flipped. It went from being terrified, like, to the point where I couldn't breathe, to it being like, no. Like, I've got work to do. I got to learn everything I need to learn about what I'm up against. And when when I know more, and when I understand my condition, and I'm going to be the best patient they ever had, because I'm coachable, like, I'm okay with that. But I'm going to understand, I'm going to be a full participant. And knowing it just gave me the power to kind of like lean into that, experience of the biopsy, then the chemotherapy, and then the big surgeries. And then with the subsequent brain tumors after that, I realized that after each one, like, something extraordinary happened. It's like after cancer, I went through this whole kind of inner searching of like, now what do I do? My mom didn't just survive, I did. What am I going to do with my second chance? And I met my wife, and we started a family, and it's just like been big, right? And then, with the first brain tumor, I was married and I had a young son, and it was like, okay, what's, it's faith. When I told Tracy, she just grabbed both my hands and she started to pray. She didn't even say, oh no, or anything else. She just said, I said, I have a brain tumor. She goes, boom. And I just realized that, that faith can really fill us with that inner strength, and that power, and that, that comfort of knowing that, again, what is next is what is next. And our big mantra was, it is what it is and whatever it takes. It is what it is and whatever it takes. And then you learn and you understand, and you try to, figure out what's next. And as long as you can participate and not, like, if you're a participant in your, whatever your affliction, instead of just a spectator, it really helps. It's like, now it's like I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm getting to work. And instead of it just being, okay, what are you going to do to me today? It's like, no, it's like, what are we going to do today? How are we going to, this is you, Doc, you and me, we're in this together. So how are we going to make this a successful arrangement? And I just, there are times where, again, the fear of being diagnosed with cancer, that first brain tumor, which is like, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's so not fair. I did the cancer thing. I had the childhood illness thing. And the kind of the punchline of that is when they did the biopsy, they go down through your brain and take a piece of it and take it out. They said they found a safe corridor. I said, I'm not using any of it. Trust me, it's all good. And they basically handed my wife this material on a craniopharyngioma and what it is. And I did have that 4 years of being in and out of hospitals as a child. And my wife goes, oh, listen to this. Craniopharyngiomas are usually detected early in a child's life due to a lack of growth and development. Wow. Bingo! It's like, I was born with that brain tumor, and that was my childhood illness. I mean, more than likely, right? Yeah. So now it's like, okay, all these incredibly great things have happened to me because of this brain tumor, or with this brain tumor. I would say, how bad do I feel about it now? Like I have to look at it differently. Like, yeah, that was sort of what got me into skating. That's what made me my height. That's what made me my build. And that's what, so it's like, okay, I don't really feel like doomed or cursed or anything. And then it came back again the next time. And that one felt a little bit like a kick in the gut, to tell you the truth. I just didn't feel good about it. That one kind of knocked me down. And so, going in with that attitude was probably my fault, but the first surgery, it was a complication with the surgery. And so I had to have 9 more. Wow. Right. So it was kind of a lost summer, of just going in for one after another. It was also like being in a, kind of a mini chamber of horrors, but every story, if you, again, can have a happy ending, so I got through it. And then 6 years later, the brain tumor came back again. And this time now I've survived it twice. So now I'm feeling,
stronger than, yeah.
Well, no, I didn't feel strong enough, but I felt like it's now the devil I know instead of the devil I don't know. Right. So first time was radiation. Second time was surgery. This time a little complicated because the surgery, they have to go in and dismantle everything they did before to kind of get back in and do it again. And so it's more complicated. But they're telling me all this stuff, and all I'm hearing is wah, 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 wah. All I heard was my head was get strong. Like that was it was just in there. It was like, get strong. And so they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go, I'm going to go get strong. And they go, you don't want to make a decision today? I go, no, let's just keep an eye on it. And when I need to pull the trigger on something, I will. But right now, I'm not symptomatic, and it's not really pushing into anything important like optic nerves and things like that. I go, I'm going to get strong. Now, when I had that instinct to get strong, I didn't know if it was physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual. So I kind of go, well, I better do all of them then. All the above.
Just do it all to cover the bases, right?
No, you gotta make sure I didn't miss anything, right? So it's really, I've been more alive in the last 4 years in many respects than I've ever been.
Wow.
And I feel more in touch with kind of who I am and who I'm supposed to be in those 4 years than I ever have. And I've watched the tumor grow and shrink and shrink and grow and shrink and shrink. No one can really understand why it's shrinking, but then it'll grow again, then it'll shrink and shrink. And so it's just for the last 4 years, of getting strong. And that's, it's been, really just understanding, my faith and understanding, what that means in this world, and understanding how I can, inspire others to understand you may think you know yourself, and you may think you understand the world as it is, but until you dive into this world of Christianity, it's like, man, it's lacking flavor, right? It's just like, it's bland. And then when you inject this incredible amount of love and hope and redemption and, oh my goodness, all those incredible things that just allow you to kind of start each day anew, and without carrying all that baggage of your past around, it's so liberating, and it's so powerful, and it's filled with a promise, and you're working in this life, and that at the end of it, there is a day when you hope to be standing in front of your Creator, and just pray for the words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So it's just trying to be obedient to the life I've been given, and to try to help others along the way.
Yeah, such a beautiful story. I absolutely love that. So I'm super curious, how did your relationship with death evolve over time from, the time your mom got diagnosed to now? How has that relationship evolved and changed?
I miss my mom every day. I miss my dad every day. I miss my grandparents every day. It's just, you miss them, but it's the hope that comes with maybe, seeing them again, or knowing that at the end of this earthly life, you head into the next, right? And it's not like, oh, this is it. Once it's over, it's over. It'd be hard to live that way for me. And I know it is for many other people to think that this is it, right? Especially as you start to get a little older, you're thinking, oh, this is it, man. This is like, oh, you get angry, because I didn't do that. I messed up this, and I failed at that. And you're looking at all those things as kind of the sum total of your life. And I, look at that and go, I learned, I grew. I understand things better because of that one. That one kind of like knocked me down, but I'm still here. And just that faith, that anticipation. There was a man I met years ago named Greg Murtha, and he basically set a record for chemotherapy. Nobody'd ever had that many chemotherapies for his type of cancer. And, he was really just struggling through, but he had such faith. And I heard that he was in hospice at the hospital, and he was in his last days. So I went to see him, and he suffered pneumonia, and he was on oxygen and everything. And he would pull his mask away, and he'd look and he'd go, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm almost there. I'm almost at the foot. I'm almost at the feet of Jesus. I can't wait to meet him. I'm so excited. I've waited my whole life for this moment. And it's that anticipation and that hope of living a life of faith and understanding who you are in the kingdom. It's so captivating, and it's so interesting, and there's so much to learn. And it's just sort of this lifelong, like, you see people in ministry that is still aspiring to understand everything that they've had in their hands all these years. So it's just a powerful journey, and it's been so invigorating. It's been so life-giving to me, and it's been so hopeful. There's so much optimism in that it allows me to not sweat like the daily stuff. It's like, oh, this happened today. Okay, well, we'll see where we are tomorrow. And it's like, it's not always what happens, it's how you respond to it. I was giving a talk this morning, and it was, a story from what I learned in Lake Placid. It was like, I heard a quote: it's not the events in your life that define you, it's how you respond to them. And it's true. You see people that these veterans that come back from the war without legs and arms, and they reinvent themselves, and they're now getting into sports, and they're doing whatever, but they're different, but that doesn't mean they're lesser. It's time to step into the new, and I get inspired by that. I get inspired by so many. I just try to pay attention and learn something from each interaction, and in that, I just hope I'm a little bit richer for the experience.
Yeah, it really reminds me of this quote of yours, which says that the only disability is a bad attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only true disability in life is a bad attitude. I've met too many people. There's this guy, and I can't wait to see him again. I met him when he was a junior in high school. His name is Joel Sonnenberg. And I think about him all the time because he had such an effect on me. He was burned over 85% of his body as a young baby child, whatever. And yeah, you'd think, somebody had burned like that. He didn't really have ears and nose or fingers. He was really badly burned, except for the 15% of his body. He was wearing a wet diaper at the time. So that
Oh.
wasn't, that part of his body wasn't burned. And you meet him for, I don't know, 2 minutes, 90 seconds, and all of that goes away. And you understand that you're meeting somebody truly magnificent and special and joyful and just so alive. And you go, wow, that is like, for a lot of people it'd be a really difficult thing to imagine, being disfigured or whatever. But it's not, that's not who he is. Whatever his wrapper is, it's what's inside that's coming out that just makes you really admire this guy. And he's built this incredible life, of just just getting involved in doing things and sharing his love of the Lord. And then I look at guys like Kyle Maynard. Have you ever heard of Kyle Maynard?
No, I don't know him.
Kyle Maynard climbed Kilimanjaro. Well, a lot of people have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, but how many people do you know have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro without arms or legs?
Wow.
Yeah. And he carried a soldier's ashes up to the top.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So you look at people like that have taken their circumstances. Travis Roy is another one. I've had the honor of meeting him. His dream was to play hockey at Boston College or Boston University in Boston. I always get those two confused, but I think it was Boston University. So he gets on the ice, his first shift, he's on the ice for 11 seconds. And he gets checked into the boards, and he breaks his neck, and he's paralyzed from the waist down. Or no, from the neck down. He graduated college on time.
Wow.
So I look at people, I look at people like that, and I go, what's my excuse? What am I up against? And those gentlemen were up against insurmountable challenges, and they owned them and they operated them. They're like, no, this it's my life. I run it. I do it. And it's like, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
And so I see, and I hear these stories, and I get so inspired, and it's gas in the tank. It allows me to just keep going and going and going. And, it's hard to do that in a bubble. It's hard to do that on your own. You really need those external forces to come into your life, because people are meant to be with people, and they're meant to be in community with other people. And I think that's why podcasts work. I think that's why, because you're really interacting with people in a unique way, and you get to understand things from a different point of view that you probably desperately need at that time.
Yeah, Scott, that is so beautiful. And then especially coming from someone like you that has suffered probably more life challenges than most of us will. And yet you are still saying, like, look at those guys, right? I want to be like those guys that have suffered even more. It's still so hard. And so for the rest of us that haven't suffered quite as much, this is even more of a reason to really take control of our lives, and really for everybody to say, I have this life, so I'm going to use this to the utmost of my ability. No matter what the challenges in life. Live
your days, man. It's
yes.
like, it's like we have so many of them. And it's precious. I mean, each one of them holds the opportunity for something really amazing. And I really believe that. I don't just say it. That's where the whole program, the whole platform came from. It was just like, man, I've seen it. I've wasted a bunch of my days, and I look back, you can't get them back. It's not like I go, oh, can I just push rewind and can I go back and do that over again? It doesn't work like that. You're on a one-way track, and you're going that way, right? So I really try to be alive, and as alive as I can possibly be, and try to, figure things out, read and pay attention to things and understand things from my point of view, which is unique. The way we could watch the same movie at the same time, sitting right next to each other, and we could get something totally different out of it. And I love that. I mean, it's just like whatever our mind, whatever our experience, whatever our emotions, kind of identify. And I do every year. I do a weekend of talks at the World Outreach Church in Murfreesboro. And this year I think they're in December or maybe November. Anyway, Pastor Allen, who runs the church, Alan Jackson, he's a great guy, and man, his ministry is huge. But he just said, the one thing I've learned in all my years of ministry is they're going to take away, each person's going to take away one thing. Maybe some will take away more than one, but usually they'll take away one thing, and they'll all be different one things, So you don't know. You don't, it's not like you're going to look at this body of work that you just put down in front of somebody. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there's this one thing in there that was gold to that person. And that's kind of what we're in this for. It's like we have something to share. We have something to give to somebody else. And if we don't give it, it's not their missed opportunity, it's ours,
Yes.
Well, it's theirs too.
I mean, there's this too. But it's such a beautiful way at looking at life. So I'm super curious, like, what are some of those daily musts? Like, do you have any certain habits, anything that, you try to put into every single day to truly feel like at the end of the day, I've lived today?
I'm always the first one up in the morning. I get the kids up for school. My wife stays up later. We're on, and she's kind of like the organizer, right? So she's up late getting everything organized for the next day to make sure everything is, all the kids have what, and so I go to bed a little bit earlier, and then I get up earlier, wake up the kids, and I make a hot breakfast. I really want them to have a hot breakfast when they go to school. So, it may seem, sort of little, but to me, that's a big deal. To me, that like making sure they have a hot breakfast and they have enough healthy food in their bodies to start their day makes me feel like I'm really a great parent,
Yeah.
And so, Tracy, my wife, she's really into they got this, she knows their schedule, she knows their responsibilities, she knows everything that's going on, and I depend on her for that. And then I do my part, I do whatever I can, and my part is, really to provide for the family and do all those things. But it's all those little things, like, sitting in my son's room last night and just, sharing a moment of common interest, and my other son, he had to be, they're doing this Greek play today in school, and he had to be Hercules.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So last night I snuck out and I bought him a Hercules costume, a big old muscle thing, a shirt that he can wear.
Love that.
And so it's little things like that. And it's, reaching out to the different stakeholders in the skating academy to make sure they have what they need. It's about making sure that I take in, enough scripture each day to kind of make me, really feel like that was a dedicated part of my day. And so it's sometimes it's traveling and it's meeting people on airplanes. Sometimes it's giving speeches and really trying to, figure out who, I'm talking to in the audience, it's everyone, but it could be one person, So, each day presents its own list of opportunities, and I hope to answer those opportunities with the right response.
Yeah, I love that so much. Now, Scott, if you could give our listeners just one action step or one piece of advice to really start applying right away in their lives. You talked about everybody takes away usually one thing. So what would you suggest to people to take that one thing with?
So here's the thing. Every day it'd be fun to do something a little bit different. So as part of the Live Your Days platform, it's liveyourdays.com. Just so simple, liveyourdays.com. We have a 30-day challenge. And the 30-day challenge, it's not like we don't ask you to run a marathon or anything, because that would be really dumb. But it's to really build those muscles in our in our being of gratitude and understanding our lives and our quality and everything else. So I would tell people just to sign up for the 30-day challenge, and each day, you know, just it's like the first day, it's write down 3 things that you're really grateful for. Just 3 things and why. So, you know, you start a journal and you start writing down those things. And, you know, it's like, if you could, you know, it's all those, it's like, take something off somebody's list today. Like, you know, for my wife, she's got all these things to do. If I could just take one thing off of her today, that would lighten her load a little bit. So it's acts of kindness, it's acts of generosity, it's thoughtfulness. It's also kind of inwardly understanding, you know, kind of who we are and what makes us unique and special. And so I would say if I could take one thing, it would be 30 things. It would be just sign up for the 30-day challenge and get to know yourself a little bit better. And you know, in that, you know, it says it takes 18 days to change, you know, the way you do things. Well, we gave you 12 bonus days. So the 30-day challenge is no matter where you start, it starts on day 1 of the 30-day challenge. So it's not like if you sign up, what is it today? You know, that you're that day of the month in. No, it's when you sign up, bam, it starts on that day of the 30-day challenge. So that'd be one thing that would be really great. And to also understand that while there's air in your lungs, there's life in your body. And that's a day. That's a day. Yes. So we need to, you know, always be conscious of that and always be obedient to that.
Absolutely love that. Now, what does it mean for you to max out your life?
Oh man, I don't know. You know, it's like I've done a lot of stuff, you know, and yeah, it's each thing leads to the next, you know, like when I was a little kid, you know, trying to find something to do, right? So I get sick, I'm in hospitals, and then I find skating. Whoa, no, it's skating, you got to climb the ladder, you got to take tests, and every day you get up, and it's like, how do you max that out? Well, you max it out by, you know, like winning the Olympics. Okay, so I did that. All right, so, you know, kind of like, all right, then what? You know, so, you know, and then, you know, as a male figure skater, there's not the same opportunities for me. So you got to like, now I got to really get creative, and I got to start thinking of ways that I can be valuable or potentially valuable to an employer, right? So, I got to do that. So you figure that out. And how do I get my raise? How do I do all those things? And then you get to a point where my body didn't want to do it anymore. So it's like, okay, now what am I doing? Well, I have all these experiences, and I've got all this like equity of relational equity of like, I've been around in front of so many people for so long. I can use those. I can speak. I can do corporate speaking. I can do, you know, inspirational, motivational, educational speaking, right? I can do that. So and then some broadcasting, I did that, you know, I can do that. So you're always kind of like, this door will get into this room, and then you walk through the room, and then that door gets into the next room. And, you know, if you can build your life like that, even if it's like somebody slams the door on you, oh, there's a window over there. Let me go over there and check that out. You know, just, you got to keep going. And at the end of it, you know, you can look back on and you go, you know, that was fun. That was hard at times, and it was painful at times. And it, you know, there were times that took my breath away, in good ways and in not so good ways, but it was a full experience. You know, it's like leveraging the difficult times to allow good things to happen is really a muscle that is, you know, it takes time to build, because most, you know, a lot of people, not most, I should say, a lot of people I've met get crushed under the moment instead of allowing them to understand that that's a really good, solid reason to get up and kind of figure out the next thing or how it's all going to work. You know, it's whether it be a lost job or a broken relationship or an illness, whatever, you know, I've kind of had all those, you know, you just got to figure out those survival skills of not just survival, your thriver skills of what it takes to not only get through that, but to be better on the other side. I did a TED Talk last summer, I guess it was last summer. Yeah. And I basically talked about suffering. Like, that's a fun talk to give, right? Suffering, that's like what we all do. We all suffer, right? I said, you know, suffering is like that fork in the road, right? We get to that fork in the road, but it's not a right or left fork in the road. It's an up or down fork in the road, right? So you have three choices. You can succumb. You can allow that whatever you're going through, suffering, to allow you, just crush you and just, you know, diminish you. You can adapt. You can just sort of stay right here and not go up or down. You can just stay right there and adapt to whatever your condition is. Or you can take kind of the steeper, tougher road and you can evolve, right?
Yeah.
So succumb, adapt, or evolve. That only three choices you got here. That's it. Three choices: succumb, adapt, or evolve. And every time I've taken that steeper road, whew, man, you come out the other side and you go, that was hard, but it was so worth it, you know? And so knowing that, you know, we're gonna go through times, difficult times. We're gonna go through, you know, those periods of yuck, you know, because that's life. But it's also how we take ownership of that, work through it, and allow it to do its work in us. And I guess that would be a nugget, I guess. I don't know.
Scott, it definitely is. I love this so much. And so thank you so much for coming on the show.
I know it's pretty heavy, right? But it was fun.
All right, guys, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you gained some valuable ideas, tips, tools, tricks, mindsets, belief systems that will hopefully inspire you to take your life to the next level. At the end of the day, guys, it's all about application. The only thing that's going to set you apart tomorrow from where you are today is how much action you take with those ideas that you gained. And so I really want to challenge you at this point to, you know, not just listen to this passively, to not just consume this, you know, passively, just thinking about other things, but to really take those lessons, take those ideas that you just gained and start applying them to your lives, to really start taking action and sprinting towards those goals and those dreams that you have in your life. Now, guys, at this point, I want to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider heading over to iTunes and leaving a review, as that helps me really grow the show and reach more people, impact even more people around the world. You know, if you have a family member, a friend, a loved one maybe that you think could benefit from this content, please consider, you know, sharing it with them, forwarding to them, as that helps us really build a community of like-minded people that are all about maxing out their lives. Now, guys, with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in today. I really, really appreciate it. Stay strong and see you tomorrow.